do. But we were all talking about it this past weekend, and now we're able to like laugh at everything that happened and like how fucking insane that whole situation was. Honestly, I know Mads, and I know
Guys want more Brittany stories? I'm gonna tell you about the most traumatizing sleepover I've ever had. I need to light my candle for this one. So I was about 14 at the time, and Brittany invited everyone over to her house for her birthday sleepover, and her parents had given her an allowance to go shopping at the mall the next day with all of us. Keep in mind, their family had just moved into their new house, so everything was like brand new. It was probably around 10 or 11 p.m. when my best friend and another girl randomly locked themselves in the bathroom, and I was having FOMO because I was 14. So I'm like knocking on the door and I'm like, guys, what are you doing? Like, what are you talking about? And for whatever reason, they like weren't answering me. So my dumbass thought if I kicked the door really loud, then it would make like a bang sound and get their attention, and then they would open the door and like tell me what they were talking about. I was fully to blame in this story, okay? I was a literal idiot in high school. So I swing my foot up, I kick the door, and I swear to God, I wasn't even like trying to do it hard. I was just trying to do it loud enough to make a noise and get their attention. My foot literally goes right through the door. And it didn't fully come out the other side or anything, but it made a huge hole in the door. Me knowing this was Brittany's house, my very first thought was she is going to me. My best friend and the other girl opened the door and their jaws just drop, and I was like, oh my gosh, Brittany. So Brittany comes out of her room, she sees the hole in the door, and she absolutely loses it on me. I was like, I'm so sorry, I feel terrible, I'll fix it. She's screaming at me. Then her parents come upstairs to see what happened, and they were mad. Her dad saw what happened, and then he just marched right back down the stairs. Her mom was like lecturing us. I was apologizing profusely. Her mom like goes downstairs, talks to the dad for a minute, and then comes back upstairs after we heard the front door slam. She says, Daddy went to the gas station for a minute because he needs to take some time to cool down. I was like, I literally thought he was going to come back and like us. So her parents are furious at me. Brittany is screaming at me. She was like, F you, Jessie. These were brand new doors in our brand new house. Now my parents aren't gonna give me money for a shopping spree tomorrow. My best friend is literally sobbing. One girl is sitting in the corner hyperventilating and having a panic attack. Brittany was screaming at me. I remember being like, I have $13 cash. I know it's not a lot, but I'll give it all to you. I'm so sorry. And then I was like, I have this Calm app. Maybe we should all do a meditation to calm down. Picture 7 14-year-old girls listening to a meditation and sobbing themselves to sleep. Yeah, her parents hated me after that. And I'm pretty sure she holds a grudge against me for that to this day.
here is the story time of the most fucked up thing my mother made me do. I trauma blocked this shit out of my memory because it was like that scar. When my mom was in town this weekend, we were talking about it, and I was like, wait, I literally need to tell this story immediately. This story starts when my oldest sister was in the psych ward. She kept telling my other sister and I that she was going to the psych ward because she was like, I just literally need a vacation from life. And we were like, okay, but like, that's not really what the psych ward is like. You know what that's not whatever, but bitch needs a vacation. Also, like, don't think she realized that like the psych ward is not glamorous. Like, this was not like rehab. This was a state psych ward. My oldest sister's going through it. While my sister's in the psych ward, we get the call, my mom and Sissy and I get the call that her best friend had died. Like, it's sounding really heavy, but it gets a lot lighter. Like, it is really fucked up. Find out her best friend has passed. We're all like so shocked. We're like in tears. Everyone's like, but we're like, how the fuck are we gonna tell my oldest sister? My oldest sister in the psych ward had a phone where she would like call us all the time, and she kept calling us and being like, let's call her dead friend Mads. Be like, why the fuck hasn't Mads called me? Like, where is Mads? And we like cannot tell her over the phone that her best friend died. Like, that's so fucked up. My mom's like, well, what the fuck do? We have to go down and tell her. And I'm like, what do you mean we? Like, I am not going to the psych ward. The reason I didn't want to go to the psych ward because years prior I was in the psych ward. And that's a story for a different time, but I was like, Mom, absolutely fucking not. Like, I am not going to the psych ward with you. Like, that's just gonna give me like trauma. Like, I'm good. And she's like, Olivia, like, I can't go alone. Like, I don't know how to tell your sister this. He's like, I'm not fucking going. I've done enough psych wards in my day for these like, literally not doing it. Like, I'm not doing it. I've been to the psych ward too many times for them. And I'm like, okay, bitch, relax. It was one time for me. Sissy's immediately like, no, like, I'm not going to tell her. Like, I can't. Like, I'm not. And my mom's like, please. So I'm like, fuck, I have to go to the psych ward with my mother to tell her. And I'm like, fine, Mom, I'll do it. We'll go to the ward together, like, whatever. I will say, at this time, I did not realize how intense this was going to be. Not that I didn't realize her friend being dead was a big deal, but it just like, it didn't, I don't know. I was like 19 years old. I was just like, fuck, I gotta go to the psych ward with my mom to tell, like, So my mom's like, let's bring her Chipotle, like, it'll harshen the blow. I'm like, I don't feel like Chipotle is gonna make her feel any better about this. She's like, yes, it will, Olivia. I'm like, okay, mom, what the fuck, whatever. So we get to the psych ward, and I'm immediately like, where the fuck are we? Go to the psych ward, they're like making us take off our shoes. We have to go through like a metal detector. I'm like, mom, this is like pretty fucking intense. She's like, yeah, like, I don't remember it being this intense. You were in the psych ward. I'm like, okay. Mind you, everybody, there's like a long line. Everybody there has like stuff for people. And the lady behind us says to my mom, she's like, well, like when you come back in summer, like all these things. And my mom was like, who the fuck lets, because in the psych ward, I feel like you're in there like a week max, basically, right? And my mom was like, who lets people be in the psych ward this long? Like, what insurance company is like covering this, right? So, and I'm like, god damn, they're like literally doing a strip search to every single person who's going in the ward. We get there, we give the guy the name, and he's like, ma'am, this is the prison. My mom took us to the fucking prison. I'm like, I'm sorry, sir, we're looking for the ward. And my mom's like, oh my god, thank god, like that was absolutely terrifying. I'm like, mom, how the fuck did you take us to the prison? Like, how did we somehow end up at the state fucking prison? Like, we almost went in there. Get to the psych ward, we get in there, we see my sister, and my sister's like immediately like, okay, like I need to get the fuck out of here, like I'm so over it here. And we're like, yeah. And then she's like, so where's Mads? Can you like tell Mads to call me? And my mom starts kicking me under the table. I'm like looking at my mom and I'm like, bitch, like be fucking for real. Like I'm not about to fucking tell her, like absolutely not. Mind you, like my sister's talking and I'm looking at my mom like this, like tell her, like tell the bitch, tell her. My mom's looking at me like, you have to tell her. So my sister's immediately, what the fuck? Like, where's Mads? Like, why did she get arrested? Like, what the fuck is happening? So I look at my sister and I'm like, I'm gonna tell you something, but you have to act really, really calm. Because, like, the nurses are watching, you know what I mean? Like, it's a supervised visit, but I'm like, you have to act very calm or they're gonna take you away. And my sister's like, okay, Livy, like, what the fuck? And I'm just like, Mads died. Mind you, I'm 19 years old. I don't know how the fuck to deliver that news. And I'm pissed at my mom. I'm like, mom, why the fuck couldn't you tell her? Immediately after I say that, I'm like, mom, what the fuck? Like, when you couldn't say anything. And my mom was like, Olivia, I couldn't. Like, my heart is broken. Like, I just can't do it. My sister's like hyperventilating. And she's like, what the fuck do you mean? Like, obviously, like, she just found out her best friend died. So she's losing her fucking mind. My sister's freaking out. She's asking so many questions. I'm like, hey, you need
Is it happening? Has Rule 3 been broken? Let me explain. Kate has been boyfriend material since day one when he rescued Zeta from a spaceship accident. Except that he also friendzoned himself on day one with roommate rule number 3. No catching feelings. Blech. That's much harder when your chemistry is literally out of this world. Haha, get it? So Zeta's little
have you. And so now I'm thinking, I wonder why we haven't been paid. Probably because she was embezzling a fuck ton of money, you know what I mean? And that's
named Michaela. Shout out to Michaela. To my mom, why the fuck did I have to tell her? I'm 19 years old. I'm already traumatized to have to go back in that fucking psych ward. And my mom was like, Olivia, I'm just sorry, like I just couldn't. That was the story of the most fucked up thing my mother made me do. But we were all talking about it this past weekend, and now we're able to like laugh at everything that happened and like how fucking insane that whole situation was. Honestly, I know Mads, and I know Mads like that is the perfect way that I could have told my sister that happened. Like literally just the most chaotic, insane way. But as fucked up as that story was, it's nice to be able to look back on that time with like a little bit of humor, like something so heavy had a little bit of humor to it as well. Fuck my mom for making me tell her that's still so fucked up.
I remember in my middle school, before it got shut down because we was being so freaking bad. We was really bad. But before the school got shut down, the nurse actually got beat up by one of the students. And she became the hero of the school. Let me tell you how. But let me tell you listen. So I remember one morning, I had to get up early. You guys know this. I had to take the school bus to get to school every single day. I had to wake up before dawn to get to school. So I would never eat breakfast. One morning, I was feeling a little festive and I wanted to have some yogurt. That was a mistake. I ate that yogurt and immediately felt sick. So I go in my mom's room and I'm like, I'm sick. And she's like, I don't care. You better get your sick ass on that motherfucker. So I got on the bus. I had to go to school. So as I'm riding on the bus, y'all, when I tell you I was focusing all 3 of my brain cells on not throwing up, I was so ill, almost turning green. So then when we pulled up to the school, the way the school was set up, it was the field that they had us play on, and then further in was the school. So the buses would pull up and they would let us out. And when I tell you, when they let me out, y'all, I looked at the school and I was like, that looked like 100 million miles away. So I'm walking because I need to go to the nurse. I just feel horribly sick. My friend runs up next to me. He's like, hey, Monet, what's up? And I look at them before they get that out. I'm like, bleh. As I'm like projectile vomiting, everybody around me is looking at me. They're like, ugh, oh my god, ugh. And then my friend is like, whoa, hey, you need to go to the nurse. And I was like, So I walk myself. My friend walks me over to the nurse, and the nurse isn't even there. So I have to sit there and wait until she gets there. Mind you, school hasn't started yet. Everybody that rides the school bus always got there to school super early anyways. So I'm sitting up there waiting for the nurse to come. 30 minutes didn't go by. The bell didn't rung. I'm supposed to be in class. She finally comes out of the nowhere. And the way the nurse's office was set up, it was like inside of like the principal's office. I don't know. But even the principal was like, yo, the nurse not here yet? But anyways, when she had the audacity to sigh. And she's like, did you just get here? Why are you here? Why are you here? And I was like, I threw up in the field and I need to go home. What do you mean? And she's like, did you even go to class? Did you even go to class? And I was like, no, I literally came here because class wasn't even open. Be for real. So she's like, no, go to your teacher right now. I don't even know why you're in here. Go to your teacher right now, and maybe we can figure something out. So I go to my teacher. My teacher's a sweetheart. I tell him what happens, and he's like, oh my goodness. He's like, go to the nurse right now. He's like, I'm gonna write you a note right now. He's like, actually, no, I'll just call and you just go, okay? So I go to the nurse again, and she's like, why are you back? And I'm like, bitch, for the same reason. What do you mean? So when I get to by the time I get to the nurse's office, my teacher had called her and like updated her on what was going on. So when I get there, she's like, why are you here? Home girl, I know Dr. Ball called you and told you why I was gonna come in today. So she's giving me so much attitude, you guys. Like, I'm not even kidding. So I'm like sitting there and she's still going at it. She's like, being passive aggressive, like, you ruined my morning. Like, I can't even believe this. Gosh. And then I'm like, hey, can you call my mom? Because, like, the ice pack that you gave me is surely not worth this. So then she finally caves in and calls my mom, and my mom comes pick me up. So now, the reason why she got beat up, because this girl named Michaela, shout out to Michaela, if you're watching this, you really were the hero this year. When I tell you nobody liked the nurse, no one had a good experience with her. And legend, rumor has it, even the principal fucking hated her. So Michaela goes into the nurse one day, and her hand is cut pretty bad, and she's like, yo, I need Band-Aid, like something, like, I don't even know. So the nurse is giving her so much attitude this day, right? And Michaela's like, why are you being so mean? Like, girl, I got a cut on my hand. And the nurse gets in her face and is like, your cut is not my problem. If you weren't acting like such a hood rat, maybe you wouldn't have gotten cut. Yo, and mind you, there's other kids listening to this in the nurse's office. The principal's there, and the principal's like, oh, whoa. Everybody's like, whoa. So then Michaela, mind you, the nurse was this colored. Michaela was this colored, okay? So Michaela, as the nurse is in her face, just goes, all right, make. And she just goes in, right? It was so bad that Michaela grabbed the nurse by her hair and was actively pulling her out of the nurse's office while she's going, ma. Michaela pulls her so far out of the nurse's office that she's now pulling her to like go outside. She's outside with it, and everybody in that little vicinity got to see Michaela beat the brakes off of the nurse, right? The kids that were witnesses in the nurse's office literally perked up and started running to like all the classroom doors, going bop, bop, bang, bang, bang. Michaela beat up the nurse! Michaela beat up the nurse! Because the tension between Michaela and the nurse has been going on for the entire, everybody knew about that. It was going on for the entire year. Obviously, when the nurse got up, she was like, I can't even believe this. I was never rude to you. Oh my God. But even the principal said, like, no, that was a very racist thing, like a very microaggressive thing to say to a black student, right? So
Let Soleil escape. Scented handles tickle your senses.
yeah, eventually, I think Michaela got suspended. She didn't even get expelled for that. And the nurse, I think she was able to come back, but she didn't come back.
The way a guy's whole demeanor changes as soon as he finds out you have a boyfriend is so filthy. Let's talk about it. A year ago, me and my friends went to the club, and then we went to this like after hours social club. It's like members only, but it's not. You basically just have to know someone to get in. Our one friend, she's a bottle girl there, so that's how she's able to get us in. So we go to this place a lot, and there was this one bouncer that we weren't familiar with because we've never really seen him there. I'm assuming he was new. Anyway, he was young. He was probably like in his mid-20s. I feel like a lot of these stories revolve around guys that age. Definitely. Anyway, it was me, my friends, my sister's friends. I usually always go out with my sister, and of course Jake, and then some of our friends' boyfriends, which they all rode in a separate car. They're all like really good friends, which is fine. I would rather ride in a car with the girls bumping Fergalicious instead of being in the car with the guys talking about stocks. And of course Fergalicious has some magic in it, so the girls get there first, obviously. The boys were a couple minutes away, so me and the girls made our way towards the entrance. We were basically just gonna like wait up there until the boys got there, where we would all walk in together. We walk up to the mid bouncer, and immediately he was like, "What are you pretty girls getting into tonight?" And we're like, "The social club, hopefully." And he's like, "Oh yeah, ha ha ha, like who do you know here?" And we're like, "Oh, the bottle girl blah blah is one of our really good friends." And he goes, "Oh yeah, I'm familiar," and then immediately starts hitting on me and my one friend, like complimenting me really hard. My outfit, my face, my bosoms, all of that. He was definitely drunk. I'm obviously not entertaining it at all, why would I? So I was just like, "Oh yeah, ha ha ha," and I'm like trying to like get away from him and like talk to my friends because we're all like waiting there. He was like, "Oh, well, do you want me to take you inside? They can like meet you in here. I can show you around." And I was like, "Dude, like I just told you we've been here before." He was like, "Who are you waiting on?" And I was like, "My boyfriend and my two friends' boyfriends." At this point, the guys started to make their way towards the entrance, and like this guy's whole demeanor changed. While they're walking up, this dude goes, "Oh, you didn't tell me you had a boyfriend." And I was like, "Dude, I was trying to not talk to you." Like this dude was blabbing to us for a couple minutes before the guys came. As soon as the guys walk up, he literally goes, "Oh, I have to see if we have enough room." I'm like, "What are you talking about? You just asked us if you can show us around." And he was like, "I never said that." Then these two girls come up to get their IDs checked, and he's like, "Oh, come right in, ladies." Like literally gets them in. We're like, "Hey buddy, you just let those girls in." And he goes, "Oh, but they had tickets." Number one, this dude didn't check any tickets. Number two, they weren't doing tickets for that specific night. At this point, we were calling our friend to come get us in, but she was working, so she didn't pick up the phone. He started being so rude as soon as the guys came. Like, literally acting like this big macho man. Ick. I completely forgot this happened, but gotta love Snapchat memories. And that's just one instant. Do you know how many guys are like that out there? It is so repulsive. Anyway, so he obviously gave us psychopath vibes, and judging by his outfit, dude had no reason to be on a high horse. No, like, full-on Frank Gallagher vibes. So we left. It wasn't a big deal. It was just so annoying.
Story time of how my history teacher convinced the entire class that we all had AIDS. So when I was a junior in high school, I decided to take AP World History. The teacher for this class was super interesting. He would find out of the box ways to give us lessons all the time, and he was one of my all-time favorite teachers. He had made a graph of the world population starting from like 200,000 years ago to current times that would wrap around his classroom so that you could see the boom of the Industrial Revolution and how it made our population go crazy. He also won Teacher of the Year for the state of Maryland. He slayed. I literally never knew that a teacher could make world history so fun and interesting. So one day he walks into class and you can tell his demeanor is like concerned or something. And he kind of sighs and he says, "I had a whole lesson planned for today, but what I was listening to on the radio while driving to school, I think I want to scrap the lesson for today and just talk about this and maybe try to turn this into a lesson of some sort." And we're all intrigued, like, what's going on? This is so weird. Nothing like this has ever happened. He tells us that he was listening to the radio. For some reason, they're noticing huge spikes of AIDS cases all over America, like showing up in numbers that are just too big to explain. Back in the 80s, when the AIDS epidemic was happening, the US government told us, American citizens, that condoms would stop the spread of AIDS. Well, it turns out that it actually just put AIDS in a dormant state within our bodies. Meaning, all of our parents probably had AIDS, because if you've ever made love with anybody before, you probably have it, or you have it from your parents. It's in all of us, basically. This is kind of like shocking all of us. We're all thinking, yeah, we have AIDS. Everyone's kind of looking at each other concerned, but no one has their phone out. None of us can like fact check this. So he goes on. How does this affect your trust with your government, knowing that they lied to all of us? We had a group class discussion. What the US told us at that time basically just put a band-aid on this issue instead of actually fixing it, and it hurt the trust a lot of the American people. We talk about how this is going to affect the economy. We go into it all. And then he looks at us. I've been lying to you guys this entire time. None of that is true. He also says, remember how I told you guys never to trust good speakers? This is why. We can manipulate you. He does this every single year, and to not spoil it for the next class. And that one year a girl ran out of the classroom crying. I feel like that's such an unhinged thing to do as a teacher. And that's how my teacher convinced our whole class that we had AIDS.
On the day I got fired from my job, I totted into work and I started hearing everyone talking about how our company was on the news. A big Australian news company had covered us and a story. And I was like, what in the darn toot and hell have I missed? And a guy that didn't even work for the company, who was just here fixing the lift, had to come over and tell me what the hell was going on. And he told me that the CEO of the company had allegedly fled overseas for the past 5 weeks because the daughter had embezzled 150 million. Excuse me? A gasp. I sat in my seat in shock, and her bail was billions of dollars. So I'm sitting at my desk and I look up the news story and I watch it in full. It's like a 10-minute news story. And I'm thinking, is nobody concerned? Like, we're talking about it. Hearing the little game of Chinese whispers we're all playing. But nobody's thinking, maybe this is an issue. You know? Maybe this is not an ideal situation. And that's not even the kicker. Here's the kicker. I hadn't been paid for like 4 or 5 weeks, and everybody else hadn't been paid for even longer. Some people had been waiting years, 7 weeks, 3 months, what have you. And so now I'm thinking, I wonder why we haven't been paid. Probably because she was embezzling a fuck ton of money, you know what I mean? And that's why none of the workers can get paid. But we all just keep going. We all just keep trotting on in our day jobs, hoping, praying. And so naturally I'm going, okay, I'm gonna have to quit this job. And then the